Welcome to the Savvy Dentist podcast with Dr. Jesse Green, the show where great dentistry meets great business. Listen in each week as we bring you an inspiring person who will share their story, ideas and business techniques to help you create a practice and a life you love. And now introducing your host, Dr. Jesse Green.
Hey everyone, Jesse Green here. Welcome back to SavvyDentist.com and to the Savvy Dentist podcast. Terrific to have your company for another episode of the show. Now, today I want to talk to you all about becoming a referral powerhouse. We know that word-of-mouth referrals are a great source of patients because we know the patients that come in through word-of-mouth referrals are typically more sold on the practice, more likely to accept treatment. They're often high-quality patients for different ways that, they're just nice people. And one of the things that I keep hearing out in the marketplace at the moment is that, word-of-mouth marketing is ineffective, it's too slow, it's too this, whatever it is. And for a lot of people it is. And for those people who say it's too slow, it's probably because they're sitting back on their feet and doing it really passively. I've always been a big believer that if you're going to use internal marketing as a strategy to grow your business, you've got to be on the front foot. You've got to be very active with it. You've got to be able to drive it and do the right things consistently and well over a period of time, and you'll see those results grow. And what's really interesting is when you think about internal marketing versus external marketing is a really additive process. 1 + 1 = 2. But what happens with internal marketing is you can take that one person that you get through your external marketing and turn them into 2, and take those 2 and turn them into 4, and take those 4 and turn them into 8, and take those 8 and turn them into 16, and so on. And it's a compounding effect. It's an exponential growth. It's a multiplier. And so internal marketing and external marketing both go hand in hand, and there's certainly a place for both. But where I see most people going wrong with their internal marketing, and particularly their word of mouth, is they're too slow, they're too passive, and they're not getting the results. Now, we've built 2 practices to 7 figures using internal marketing without running ads, without doing paid traffic, without doing all the things that other people do. And we've been able to do it because we were consistent, we were active, we were on that front foot. So let's talk about 9 key ideas, 9 key strategies about how to become a referral business powerhouse. So the first one is developing your referral mindset. And what that really means is understanding the value of the referral. And so what that really means is understanding that the people who are referred into your practice generally, as I said earlier, they're going to come in pre-sold on you, pre-sold on your practice, more likely to accept treatment. And they're often, because people are very careful about who they refer to the practice, because it's a reflection on them, they're going to refer you their best friends, their best family members, the ones that are generally nice and easy to deal with. So you're going to have a higher quality of patient, which is awesome. And then the second thing about the referral mindset is to make sure that we enroll the team in this and it becomes core business. And generating word of mouth referrals is everyone's business on the team. And we've got to make sure that we ask the team to not just participate, to kind of get on board with the ethos and the strategy around that. And if they get on board with that and you've got a whole team rowing in that same direction, it's amazing. It's really amazing how quickly you can generate patients. So that's key idea number 1. Big strategy number 1. Number 2 is we've got to earn the right to ask for referrals. And so before we can ever ask, we've got to be able to demonstrate to the patients that we already have that we can deliver a great clinical experience and a great customer experience. And when we're doing that consistently and well, then we get to ask for the referral. Not before. We've got to earn the right, and that's really, really important. So that's key number 2. Key number 3 is setting expectations. And what I mean by this is we want to educate our patients that referring people to our practice is a common part of business. It's just part of what our patients do. And you can do that in several different ways. You can do that through an FAQ section on your website where you say, is it okay if I refer my friends? Yes, of course you can refer your friends. We happily accept patients who are referred by existing patients, blah, blah, blah. But we can do that. Or you can have a your rights and your obligations document, much like you might see an insurance broker giving you a new insurance policy, and they'll outline what your rights are under the policy, what your obligations are under the policy. And you can have that same concept in a dental practice, which we call a patient covenant. And I remember reading this concept of insurance rights and responsibilities years ago and thinking we should be doing that in dental practice. And I had this epiphany that I must have been the first person to ever consider this in dentistry. Turns out I was not. Paddy Lund had been doing that for some years already. And so I'd really encourage you, if you haven't read anything of Paddy's, read it. And he'll outline his concept of the patient covenant there. But essentially what we're saying to our patients is, when you're a patient of the practice, one of our expectations of you is, pay your bills and show up and all that sort of stuff, and to refer, one or two family or friends who are nice people just like you, who would enjoy and benefit from our services. And that way we can, use that to leverage off the asking process. Now, of course, the next big key number 4 is to reward or recognize referrals. So please understand that when someone refers you their family member or their friend, they're taking not just, a risk emotionally, because, a bad referral reflects badly on, it can upset their friend and their relationship with that friend, but it can also upset the relationship with you. So they're taking an emotional risk in two directions. And so when we receive that referral, we need to understand it is a gift. We need to understand that it is someone going out on a limb for their friend or their family member, as well as for us, and connecting the two of us together. And so we want to be able to recognize and reward our patient who makes the referral or makes the introduction. Now, the simplest way is certainly just recognition. And the most basic form of recognition is a thank you, which you would typically do via a letter or a card or whatever. I'd probably avoid some form of electronic communication. I'd rather do it, personalised, handwritten, take the time, put the effort into it, write the card yourself. Dear Bob, thanks so much for referring your friend John. I really appreciate the faith and trust you've placed in us, and I promise that we'll look after him in the way that you've become accustomed to us, in doing so. And you just write a card like that. And so being able to recognise the referral is great. Now, if you get to the point where you're rewarding referrals, again, I don't have any issue with that, but just make sure that the reward is commensurate with the referral. And what I mean by that is, if someone sends you 100 patients, maybe more than a movie ticket is an appropriate gift, right? I think that's kind of where I'm going from. All right, so that's number 4. Let's get to number 5, and I want to talk about this idea of care to share cards. And this is not a new idea. It's been around forever and a day, and I certainly didn't invent it. In fact, I don't know who invented it, but it wasn't me. And the idea of a care to share card is, you have a card that has an offer on there. It could be for tooth whitening, it could be for an exam and clean, it could be, whatever, right? And you hand out that offer. So as you're seeing your existing patients, you might say, hey, listen, we're running a promotion about da-da-da-da-da-da-da. If you have any family and friends who are just like you, I would love for you to give them this card, and that way they can enjoy, this particular offer. Now, please remember that if you're making that offer to someone who's not a patient of your practice, you should make the same offer to the patient of your practice, right? This is really interesting. Some years ago, I was referring people to an online company that manages different things online. I won't mention what they do because otherwise I'll give away the name. And it turned out, as I was referring people, they were getting a discount, which is great. I was really happy for that. There's nothing coming back to me. I didn't refer for that reason. It was just a good referral, good, clean referral. They got a discount. That was great. And what I found out, though, is that I was paying a higher rate than the people I was actually referring. And when I approached the company and said, hey, it's just come to my attention that I'm on a rate of billing that's higher than the people I'm referring to. And by that stage, I'd referred quite a few. And I thought, that doesn't quite seem fair or reasonable. Is there any way that I can at least get onto the same price that the referrals are on? And I was told in no uncertain terms that that's not possible because, my contract stipulated X dollars and they weren't going to change it, which, again, just kind of soured the deal, right? So just, again, if you're going to be using those care to share cards, make sure you look after your existing patient as well. All right, so number 6 is the patient newsletter, which is really, it's a mainstay. And I want to say that newsletters are one of the most underutilized resources in the dental practice. Most practices do not do them. Most practices probably don't know how to do them. Most practices send an EDM and think that's kind of a newsletter, but a newsletter is more than an email-based newsletter. It has sections, it has components, it has things of human interest and so on. So the key thing I want to share with you is craft a newsletter. And in that newsletter, you'll have several different types of content. You'll have very specific and very relevant content, which would be clinically oriented. Maybe it's hints and tips about how to maintain good oral hygiene or whatever it is. You'd have some semi-relevant content, which might be, back to school recipes that are dentally friendly or whatever it is. And a third one that's kind of not relevant at all, which might be, a quiz or a puzzle or whatever, right? But it engages people. And you could do that obviously electronically, or you could do that physically, however you choose to do it. But what you want to be able to do is to be able to make it shareable, okay? And particularly what gets shared is usually that semi-relevant content, like the back-to-school lunchbox recipes and those sorts of things. So again, make sure that your newsletter is shareable. If you're delivering it electronically, you can create a share button in there, and that way your patient can share it with their friends, particularly if I'm using the back-to-school example, share it with the other mothers or fathers who are taking their kids back to school, etc., and then your newsletter gets wider dissemination, and that will generate new business for you for sure. Big idea number 7. And some years ago, I ran a program. When I was running my marketing agency, we had a program called White Teeth for Life, and it's really a retention and a referral program all in one. And the idea is that you offer whitening at a particular fee, usually a fairly subsidised fee. So it's a one-time fee for whitening. And every time someone comes back in for their scheduled examination, they would get a top-up whitening. Now, we found it easier to do that with tray-based whitening systems, so you could give the patient a syringe of whitening gel when they came in each examination, and that worked really well. And what ended up happening with that White Teeth for Life program, as long as they kept that recall happening, they'd get their syringe of gel. We'd also put care to share cards in there as well. So again, it can be used really, really well for a referral-based purpose. Number 8, of course, is endorsed mailings. And endorsed mailings occur when another business sends a letter to their database endorsing you and your services. And just as an example, we did this some years ago here in Canberra. In our first practice across the way, we used to have a tanning salon back in the day when they were a thing. And we did an endorsed mailing for tooth whitening, actually, speaking of tooth whitening. And what we did is we offered, it was our White Teeth for Life program, but we got them to send it out to anyone who'd had a spray tan in the last, I can't remember, it was like 90 days or something like that. And we crafted some nice copy around that. It was about, now that you've got your lovely brown skin, let's make sure you've got a radiant smile to match, etc. And so we were able to send out that mailing to that audience. And again, it generated business for us. It generated quite a lot of new patients for us. And once they were in our system, and again, we kept them topped up with their whitening, so they kept coming back every 6 months, and off we went. So that was strategy number 8. So endorsed mailings is number 8. And the last one, number 9, is simply ask, right? And it's going to sound oh so simple, but there is a way to ask and there's a way not to ask. And so when you ask for a referral, the simplest way is to ask for feedback and pre-frame that you're going to ask for feedback before you start the appointment, and say, Mrs. Jones, at the end of the appointment, I'd love to just get some feedback from you to see how the appointment's gone. We're always looking to see how we can improve what we do here. So you go through and you ask for the feedback, and hopefully Mrs. Jones says something really nice, and you might turn around and say, look, Mrs. Jones, thank you so much for those kind words. I really appreciate you sharing that with me. I've also enjoyed the appointment too. And look, what you might not realise is we're primarily a referral-based practice, and we don't take on just any old person as a patient. But if you happen to have family and friends who are just like you, we'd really love to see them, because it makes our day when we get to treat such lovely people. So here's a couple of cards. Please feel free to give them to whomever you may choose, and we look forward to being of service to them as well. And so that's really it. And the key thing about asking, though, is to ask regularly. And so when you go through your morning huddle, I should say, at the beginning of the day, what you do then is you identify who's going to ask whom for a referral. And what that really means is you want to be asking multiple people per day across the practice, but you want to make sure that you're not all asking the same poor old person, right? So you choreograph who that's going to be. So that's how you would ask for a referral. So if you get this right, what you're going to find is your practice will grow exponentially. And if you execute on this day in, day out, and you see this as a leading indicator and a priority activity, a high value activity in your practice, what you're going to find is you're going to prime the pump for new patients coming through the door. And as I said at the beginning, most people think that internal marketing or asking for referrals or word of mouth, whatever you want to call it, is slow. It's not when you're active and when you're doing it strategically and deliberately and with purpose. It's actually a very rapid multiplier of your patient database. And as I said, for us, it's how we grew several 7-figure practices from way less than what they were when we inherited them. And we grew it really rapidly. And so if you do that, and particularly if you couple that with your external marketing, so I'm not saying don't do external marketing. What I'm saying is let's multiply the results of your external marketing with internal marketing, but active internal marketing. So being on that front foot, enrolling the team, getting everyone on board, seeing it as a high value activity. If you do that, then that snowball just gathers more and more snow, gets faster and faster, rolls down the hill, bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden you've got more patients than you know what to do with. And that creates a different problem around capacity. But we'll talk about that another time. But for now, I hope you found these 9 strategies to multiply your patient database using internal marketing, word of mouth marketing, really helpful. That's it for me. Have a great week. Look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Savvy Dentist podcast. For more episodes, go to drjessegreen.com/savvydentist. And to discover how to build a high-performance dental practice, visit drjessegreen.com and download the free report.